So here we are again, holiday weekend, right? I believe this, well, what's the holiday tomorrow? Anyway,
So. Yep.
Yeah, we're here. And we're still working with white magic. It's rule 2 in the book. If you have a book in print, it's page 73. If not, it's rule 2 is where we're going to start. And we should be able to get a lot of reading done now because there's actually some substance in this. The introduction really brought in a lot of information that or at least I felt needed some background to kind of give us some grounding. So this is called Hindrances to Occult Study. This rule is one of the most difficult in the book, and yet one of the most comprehensive. It will take us some time rightly to handle it. We have in it an interesting illustration of the microcosmic correspondence to the macrocosmic. It can be elucidated in 2 ways in relation to the light it mentions. Reference is made to the greater light, which illuminates the 3, and secondly, to throwing upward of the lower light. The greater light is that of the soul, who is light itself, illuminating the manifestation of the threefold personality. So that's basically us. And the soul is the one that lights us up when we're down here in the physical, emotional, mental. Those are the threefold personality. Herein lies the correspondences to the macrocosm as it is symbolized for us in God, the manifesting light of the solar system. The solar system is 3 in 1 or 1 in 3, and the light of the logos illuminates the whole. The lower light is that which is hidden within the human being on the physical plane. This light, at a certain stage of man's experience, is awakened throughout the physical body and blends eventually with the greater light. The light and the life of God himself may emanate from the central spiritual sun, but it is only as the light within the solar system itself is awakened and aroused that there will come that shining strength, there will come that eventual blazing forth, which will typify the glory of the sun shining in its strength. Similarly, the light of the soul may emanate from the monad, but it is only as the light within the little system, directed by the soul, is awakened and aroused that there will come the eventual shining forth of a son of God. In these instructions, however, we are dealing primarily with the microcosm and the light within it, and we shall not enlarge upon the macrocosmic analogies. In considering this second rule, we must note that a conscious relation has been established between the soul and its shadow, the man on the physical plane. Both have been meditating. Students would do well to note this and to remember that one of the objectives of the daily meditation is to enable the brain and the mind to vibrate in unison with the soul as it seeks in meditation deep to communicate with its reflection. And that little in meditation deep quote, he refers elsewhere in his material that basically the soul is in meditation deep during our incarnations for the most part, and very early stages of the incarnation process, the soul probably is in deep meditation, never bothers to even look in the direction of the shadow in those stages, because there's no hope of connecting until you've gotten to a certain point anyway. The correspondence to this relation or synchronizing vibration is interesting. So the soul and the correspondent is man on the physical plane, the mind and the brain, the pineal gland, and the pituitary body. The relation also between the centers and their synchronization is interesting, and in it is epitomized the evolution of the race as well as the racial unit, man. You've got a head center, and its correspondence is the base of the spine. You've got a heart center, its correspondence is the solar plexus, the throat center, and the sacral center. So as you move upward and you go through the various stages which involve the initiations, if you will, there is a point at which those shift from operation on the lower half, in other words, the solar plexus, the sacral center, and the base of the spine, and they shift up to above the diaphragm and connect with the other chakras that are up above. In the above lies a hint for the more advanced student, and he is the one who hesitates so to regard himself. It is also symbolized for us in the relation between the Eastern and Western hemispheres, and between those great bodies of truth which we call religion and science. The life of meditation proceeds, the rapport between the soul and its triple instrument becomes steadily closer, and the resulting vibration more powerful. How many lives this will take depends upon various factors, which are too numerous to be mentioned here, but which the student will find it useful to consider. Let him list the factors which he feels he needs to take into account as he seeks to decide his evolutionary standpoint. The result of this response is a reorientation of the lower man in order to produce a synthesis of the three and the one, so that the work of the four may proceed. Here you have the reflection consummated in the microcosm of that with which the solar logos started, the sacred four of the cosmos. Man in his turn becomes a sacred four, spirit, and the three of manifestation. 4 words should be pondered upon here: communication, response, reorientation, and union. And let's take a look at those 4 for just a minute, and let's look back at the last, since we've been doing these videos, because there was the communication. In other words, this information for, I think, most of the people who are watching this or participating was new information, but it was communicated. It gets taken within where there's a response, and then there's a reorientation inside of what if you as an individual, and then that stuff integrates to a point where I believe we've certainly looked at some positive experiences for people in how they see life. So this would perhaps have also very larger application, but that's basically what you do with this material all the time. And once you are exposed to it, there's an internal response on an individual basis. Something gets reoriented. You know, I sometimes say it moved the furniture around in there. So life is more comfortable. It flows easier. There might be more interaction with the world out there. And then that is a union because it becomes you. You know. So the old commentary expresses it in the following terms. When communication is established, words are forthwith used and mantric law assumes its rightful place, provided that the one communicates the words and the 3 remain in silence. When response is recognized as emanating from the three, the one in silence listens. The roles are changed. A threefold word issues out from out the triple form. A turning around is caused. The eyes no longer look upon the world of form. They turn within, focus the light, and see revealed an inner world of being. With this, the man is still itself, for the eyes and the mind are one. So then your mind's probably not bouncing around all the time. The heart no longer beats in tune with low desire, nor wastes its love upon the things that group and hide the real. It beats with a new rhythm. It pours its love upon the real, and the Maya fades away. Kama and heart are close allied. Love and desire form one whole, one seen at night, the other in the light of day. When the fire and love and mind submit themselves, sounding the threefold word, there comes response. The one enunciates a word which drowns the triple sound. God speaks. A quivering and a shaking in the form responds. The new stands forth, a man remade, the form rebuilt, the house prepared. The fires unite, and the great light that shines. The three merge with the one, and through the blaze, a fourfold fire is seen. In this pictorial writing, which I have sought to convey in modern English, the sage of old embodied an idea. The old commentary from which these words are taken has no assignable date. Should I endeavor to tell you its age, I have no means of proving the truth of my words, and hence would be faced with credulity, a thing aspirants must avoid in their search for the essential real. I have sought in the above few phrases to give the gist of what is expressed in the commentary through the means of a few symbols and a cryptic text. These old scriptures are not read in the way modern students read books. They are seen, touched, and realized. The meaning is disclosed in a flash. Let me illustrate. The words, the one enunciates the word which drowns the triple sound out, are depicted by a shaft of light ending in a symbolic word in gold superimposed over three symbols in black, rose, and green. Thus are the secrets guarded with care. I felt that, and anytime you want to have a little break or make a comment, just let me know, please. Otherwise, I'm going to keep reading. Okay. I felt it might be of interest to students to know this much about this ancient text book of the adepts. Our consideration of this rule will fall into two parts. The relation between the soul and the personality. This will be handled particularly with reference to meditation in the daily life, more than from the theoretical or the academical. The significance of the words, the lower light is thrown upward. These deal with the centers and the Kundalini fire. I would like here to point out the advisability of each student arriving at an understanding of his etheric body, and this for certain reasons. First, the etheric body is the next aspect of the world substance to be studied by scientists and investigators. This time will be hastened if thinking men and women can formulate intelligent ideas anent this interesting subject. We can aid in the revolution of the truth of our clear thinking, and from the standpoint of the present pronouncements about the ether. Scientists will eventually arrive at an understanding of etheric forms or bodies. Secondly, the etheric body is composed of force currents, and in it are vital centers linked by lines of force with each other, and with the nervous system of the physical man. Through these lines of force, it is connected also with the etheric body of the environing system. Note that in this lies the basis for a belief in immortality, for the law of brotherhood or unity, and for astrological truth. So you are wired and plugged in through that etheric. Thirdly, the need of realizing that the etheric body is vitalized and controlled by thought and can, through thought, be brought into full functioning activity. This is done by right thinking and not by breathing exercises and holding the nose. When this is grasped, much dangerous practice will be avoided and people will come into a normal and safe control of that most potent instrument, the vital body. That this end may be rapidly consummated is my earnest wish. Occult study is of profound importance, and students of these sciences must bring to bear upon them all that they have of the mental application and concentrated attention. It involves also the steady working out of the truths learnt. Occult study, as understood in the Occident, is intellectually investigated but not practically followed. Theoretically, some glimmering of light may be appreciated by the man who aspires to the occult path, but the systemic working out of the laws involved has made small progress as yet. Wherein lies the hindrance? It may be of value if we study three things. The Occidental hindrance to correct occult study. 2, how these hindrances may be surmounted. And 3, certain things the aspirant may safely undertake in the equipping of himself for treading the occult path. For that is the stage, and for the majority, the only stage at present possible. One of the main hindrances to correct apprehension of the laws of occultism and their practical application lies in the fact of the comparative newness of the Occident and the rapid changes which have been outstanding feature of European and American civilization. The history of Europe dates back a bare 3,000 years, and that of America, as we know, barely as many centuries. Occultism flourishes in a prepared atmosphere, in a highly magnetized environment, and in a settled condition, which is the result of age-long work upon the mental plane. This is one of the reasons why India provides such an adequate school of endeavor. Their knowledge of occultism dates back tens of thousands of years, and time has set its mark even upon the physique of the people, providing them with the bodies which offer not that resistance which the Occidental bodies so oft afford. Now, when they're talking about tens of thousands of years, I mean, aren't we only supposed to be 5,000 years old or something? Is that what the Bible tells us?
No, not so much.
But do they yeah, but go ahead.
Good. Oh, I would say they carbon dated Jericho back to like 8,000, between 8,000 and 8,500 BC. So yeah, there's some timeline issues, I think.
Yeah, probably so, but I do remember, I think we were only 5,000 years old when I was young. I'm not disagreeing with you, because they carbon date now, and they do, and they've got to come to, none of them read Blavatsky, obviously, or they would have gotten the numbers that would have made them choke. So all I'm saying is, I'm sure he's accurate here. I just remember that we were very short-lived little creatures, because we were in no way connected to animal at the time that I was young. I mean, as far as the religion I had, you know, we were set down fully complete and separate from everything else on this planet. We didn't, you know, somehow we had not evolved here. Evolution was still being challenged at the time that I was real young, and going to Sunday school. So we were separate from everything else in nature. We exceeded the capacities of everything else in nature, and we were separate. And so the attitude at that point in time also was, we can do anything we damn well please it. We won't be, you know, it won't have a consequence. And so that's where a lot of your pollution. In fact, I saw an old movie. It was the first one, I think, where what's his name? Humphrey Bogart met his wife, the young one. And so, but it was in a tropical island. And one of the first scenes is he's got a beer bottle and he just tosses it into the ocean. You know, it's empty. So it was in the bay wherever their boat was, but there was not a thought about it, just and down into the water, you know, and we didn't have any concept that anything we did could have a problem, because we were supreme. I mean, that was the Christian background that was being taught at that point in time. So, and so basically what he's saying here is, like, even with India provides adequate school of endeavor, the knowledge of occultism dates back tens of thousands of years in time, and it sets the mark of the physique of the people, providing them with the bodies which offer not that resistance which the Occidental body often affords. The environment has long been permeated with strong vibrations of the great ones who reside within its borders, and who, in their passage to and fro and through their proximity, continually magnetize the environing ether. And that will match up later with when you talk about the spirilla and the number of spirilla in a permanent atom, and then the atoms that surround it, if you've got somebody who has advanced. So because it is catchy and it does magnetize the whole environment. So this in itself affords another line of least resistance, for this etheric magnetism affects the etheric bodies of the contacted population. And again, they talk about that the body of, like, the fifth rounder, so he's got 5 spirillets, most people have 4. Okay, it sheds just like a virus. And that ought to be one of your keys right there. Talking about the etheric and the fact that it sheds, so it throws it off. So if you're in what he's saying, I believe it's in Esoteric Health and Healing, is that if you need that level of spirilla and atomic structure, if there's enough of it, and it's not predominant on this planet yet as having the 5 spirilla, then if it gets shed off and you're in the environment and you need it, your body will pick it up. And it's also another reason why you probably sometimes have people who are advanced have a child that may follow in step, because that child is there in that environment and constantly picking up whatever is available that they might need. So it says, for this in itself affords another line of least resistance, for this etheric magnetism affects the etheric bodies of the contacted population. These 2 facts of time and of high vibration result in that stability of rhythm which facilitates occult work and offers a quiet field for mantric and ceremonial enterprise. These conditions are not to be found in the West, where constant change in every branch of life is found. Frequent, rapid shifting of the scenes of action cause wide areas of disturbance, which militate against any work of the magnetic nature. The amount of force required to effect certain results does not warrant their use, and the time has been allowed to elapse in an effort to produce an equalizing effect. You know what I'm saying. The climax of the disturbed condition has been passed, and a more stable state of affairs is gradually being brought about, and this may permit of definite occult work being attempted with success. The Master R, his name is a long name and I don't remember it, is working on this problem, and likewise the Master of the English race, not the master who occupies himself with the labor movement or the betterment of social conditions. I believe Master R is a 7th ray master. They are aided by a discipline of rare capability in Sweden and by an initiate in the southern part of Russia who works much on the mental levels. Their aim is to tap the resources of forces stored up by the Nirmanakayas, that its downflow may sweep out lower graded matter and thus permit the free play of a higher vibration. The Nirmanakayas are they might be 5th and 6th ray initiates, or they're 6th and 7th. They might be 6th and 7th because there's another group between Venus and us that are 8th and 9th degree initiates. And you will run upon the Nirmanakayas as if you were able consciously to work up that whole chart in consciousness going through it, at some point you would pass them and you would recognize them. Okay, that's the only thing I can contribute. So what they're on the chart that you all have is the only point I really want to make here. And and so it's saying their aim is so to tap the resources of force stored up by the Nirmanakayas, that its downflow may sweep out lower graded matter, thus permit the free play of higher vibrations, because they are of a higher vibration than everything below them. They are there. And so what he's saying here is, this is the disciple of rare capability in Sweden by the initiate of a southern part of Russia. They work on the mineral levels, and their aim is to tap the resources of forces that are stored up there and try to bring them down and clear the channel, in a sense. Another hindrance may be found in the strong development of the concrete mind. I would here impress upon you that this development must in no way be considered a detriment. All has been in due course of evolution, and later, when the Orient and the Occident have reached a point of better understanding and interplay, their interaction will be of mutual benefit. The East will profit from the mental stimulation afforded by the strong mental vibration of its Western brother, while the Occident will gain much from the abstract reasoning of the Oriental. And through the effort to grasp that which the first subrace of the Aryan root race so easily apprehended, he will contact his higher mind, and thus build a greater facility of the bridge between the higher and the lower mind. The two types need each other, and their effect upon each other tends to eventual synthesis. And I would imagine that that is part of the attraction that the West has for the East and going to that information, because it helps to fill in and make that connection and bring in more ideology, if you will, and thoughts that we haven't even embraced yet. At the time when you're first initially, I mean, I suppose that was even the beatniks, which was 50s in New York. And there, did you have Ram Dass here then, or did that have to come like in the late 60s and early 70s? Yeah. And so you had another set in New York in the 50s, which were breaking part of that bridge, opening that avenue up, which were not directly followed in the 60s with what the beatniks had done, but they'd still opened the door. And then the 60s come, and then you get Harrison goes to India, and then some other movie stars went to India and were with, be it the Maharishi and I don't know who else. And then it brought it back over here through music, and then the Maharishi actually was here for a number of years and had a very strong, TM was Transcendental Meditation, and had a very strong focused group that functioned well, had a television station, and laid some groundwork. And then we got all kinds of print matter and books and ideas, and that was commonplace. Astrology comes in a stronger wave at that point in time. So, and if people were excited about it, because here was something that they hadn't been exposed to before. And it kind of opened that up. So the concrete mind in itself offers opportunity for a treatise of great length, but here it will suffice to point out a few of the ways in which it hinders those races which are so paramountly represented. By its intense activity and stimulated action, it hinders the downflow of inspiration from on high. It acts as a dark curtain that shuts out the higher illumination. Only through steadiness and a stable restfulness can that illumination percolate via the higher bodies to the physical brain, and so be available for practical service. The wisdom of the triad exists for the use of the personality, but is barred by the disquisitions of the lower mind. When the fire of mind burns too fiercely, it forms a current which counteracts the higher downflow and forces the lower fire back into seclusion. Only when the three fires meet through the regulation of the middle fire of mind can a full light be achieved and the whole body be full of light. The fire from above, the triadal light, the fire of the lower self, the kundalini, and the fire of mind, cosmic manas, must meet upon the altar. In their union comes the burning away of all that hinders and the completed emancipation. The third factor which hinders is by discrimination, a faculty of the concrete mental body. The lower bodies are trained in the art of distinguishing illusion from the center of reality. Okay, the real from the unreal, thus the self from the not self. Then ensures consequently a period that must be surmounted, wherein the attention of the ego is centered necessarily on the lower self and its vehicles, and wherein therefore the vibrations of the triad, the laws that deal with the macrocosmic evolution and the subjugation of fire for the use of the divine, have temporarily been in abeyance. When man quickly sees the truth in all that he contacts and automatically chooses truth or the real, then he learns the next lesson of joyful action, and the path of bliss opens before him. When this is so, the path of occultism becomes possible for him, for the concrete mind has served its purpose and has become his instrument, not his master, his interpreter, and not his hinderer. The concrete mind hithers in another and more unusual way, and one that is not realized by the student who attempts at first to tread the thorny road of occult development. When the concrete mind is rampant and dominates the entire personality, the aspirant cannot cooperate with these other lives and diverse evolutions until love supersedes concrete mind. Even though he may, in theory, comprehend the laws that govern the evolution of the Legoic plan and the development of other solar entities besides his own hierarchy, mind separates, love attracts. Mind creates a barrier between a man and every suppliant deva. Love breaks down every barrier and fuses diverse groups in union. Mind repels by a powerful, strong vibration, casting off all that is contacted as a wheel casts off all that hinders its whirling periphery. Love gathers all to itself and carries all on with itself, welding separated units into a unified homogeneous whole. Mind repels through its own abundant heat, scorching and burning aught that approaches it. Love soothes and heals by the similarity of its heat to the heat in that of which it contacts, and blends its warmth and flame with the warmth and flame of other evolving lives. Finally, the mind disrupts and destroys, while love produces coherence and heals. Every change in human life is subject to immutable laws. That one's worth remembering. Every change in human life is subject to immutable laws, if such a paradoxical statement may be permitted. In the attempt to find out these laws, in order to conform to them, the occultist begins to offset karma and thus colors, not the astral light. The only method whereby these laws can as yet be apprehended by the many who are interested is by a close study of the vicissitudes of daily existence as spread over a long period of years. By the outstanding features of a cycle of 10 years, for instance, as they are contrasted with the preceding or succeeding similar period, a student can approximate the trend of affairs and guide himself thereby. When the point in evolution is reached where the student can contrast preceding lives and gain knowledge of the basic coloring of his previous life cycle, then rapid progress is adjusting the law, the life of law is made. When succeeding lives can be likewise apprehended by the student and their coloring seen and known, then karma, as known in the three worlds, ceases, and the adept stands master of all causes and effects as they condition and regulate his lower vehicle. Anybody want to make comments? Silence is golden. That sentence is worth looking at again. Actually, I'm going to go up to where the point of in evolution is reached, where the student can contrast preceding lives and gain knowledge of the basic coloring of his previous life cycle. Then rapid progress is adjusting the life to law is made, or progress in adjusting the life to law. When succeeding lives can be likewise apprehended by the student and their coloring seen and known, then karma, as known in the three worlds, ceases. And he stipulates there, because it isn't just our own little personal karma or what we just did in previous lifetimes. We also carry with us the karma of the planet in its relation with its surrounding cosmos. So his stipulation there is when succeeding lives can likewise be apprehended by the student and their coloring and known, then karma, as known in the three worlds. That's his stipulation, is we still, when you move up into that spiritual triad, you still have the karma the planet has. You know, even if your own personal little karma for all the diddy bobs you did down when you were in the lower three are absolved and no longer hold you, you don't unload karma itself, because the whole cosmos has karma in its relations with other aspects and entities in the cosmos. So it's a word that gets bantied around a lot on a lower, more personal level. People love to throw that at other people. Basically, a lot of times you'll hear that comment, you know, well, they're really gonna incur karma, or they're, you know, or so on and so forth. But that's just the little three worlds he's talking about here. There's much grander karma, and karma is inevitable. The whole cosmos has it. It's just talking about the different relationships that occur and the levels of interaction. That's so, anyway, it's a word that, like I said, gets on the lower personal levels, gets bantied around a lot. He aspires to the occult path and considers changes and events in the light of all preceding events, and the longer and more accurate his memory, the more he can dominate all possible situations. Thus, two of the hindrances will be found to be the comparative newness and change, which is characteristic of the Occident, and the development of the concrete mind, which I imagine he is not just saying it's the Occident that's doing that, but we're in a stage where humanity is moving further up into the mental realm. So the newness and the change, which is characteristic of the Occident, the development of the concrete mind. Our third hindrance grows out of the preceding one. It consists of the emphasis that has been laid in the West upon the material side of things. First, the world of spirit, or the formless abstract world of subjective consciousness, is not recognized in a scientific sense. And I would say that's a very accurate statement, and I don't think it's changed all that much yet, is the abstract world of subjective consciousness is not really given a lot of validity. It is recognized innately by those of a mystic temperament and by those who are able to study the subjective history of man and races. But science recognizes not this aspect of manifestation, nor do scientific men as a whole believe in a world of superphysical endeavor. All that in the earlier races held paramount place in the lives and thoughts of the people are now approached skeptically, and discussions are preceded by a question mark. But progress has been made and much has arisen out of the war. The question, for instance, is rapidly changing from the formula, is there a life after death, to the inquiry of what nature is the future life. I thought it was just what, violins and music and all of that. That's what I grew up with. I wondered who in the world wants to go up there and listen to violins all the time. It just wasn't a good prospect for me to even want to go there. It says, so it's rapidly changing from the formula, is there a life after death, to of what nature is the future life? And this is a portent of much encouragement. Secondly, the masses of people are suffering from suppression and from the effects of inhibition. Science has said there is no God and no spirit within man. Religion has said there must be a God, but where may he be found? And the masses say we desire not a God constructed by the brain of theologians. Therefore, the true inner comprehension finds no room for expansion. And the activity that should be finding its legitimate expression in the higher aspiration turns itself to the deification of things, things pertaining to flesh, connected with the emotions, or having a relation to the mind. The war, again, has accomplished much by regulating things in their just position, and by the removal of possessions, many have learned the value of essentials and the necessity of eliminating that which is superfluous. And, you know, we've had some pretty big fires every once in a while in, lately it's been even whole towns. But a lot of times when you've got a good set of tract housing and that whole residential area, if it gets a really big fire, it wipes out a lot of people's personal lives. You know, they can remain alive, but all of their possessions may have been gone. I remember we had some of this in Southern California, and these had been people who had put all their photos and everything right near the door in case such a fire would happen. And they were gone the weekend the fire happened. So they lose it anyway. But there have been a number of them, and even some with these tornadoes that come, who can afterwards just feel a sense of it's all gone, but they have a sense of relief in a way, and are not devastated by it. And they've realized they're lucky they have their life, and that's what was most important. And so it resets a value there too. Not everybody feels that way, but I'm saying I've seen, because I've been in areas where fires have really wiped out sections of people's residential areas, and so they some of them have learned the value of essentials and the necessity of eliminating that which is superfluous. And they do understand that, you know, my life is what's valuable and I still have it. And that other stuff, which they had attachment to, doesn't compare to the sense of who they realize they really are in an event like that.
There seems to be a pretty big minimalist push across the country now. We got the tiny houses. You know, there's lots of that going on, and I think that the military guys in particular feel a pretty great sense of relief when they're away from all of their possessions and living with just the essentials. And then there's this almost, you know, a reverse kind of anxiety to when you come home, you have to now go back to dealing with all of the stuff.
Yeah. You had freedom before.
Right. Yeah.
And in that case, you probably had freedom to act also.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. A third condition of affairs grows out of the above two. A right apprehension of the future does not exist. When the life of the spirit is negated, when the manifesting life concentrates itself on things, concrete and apparent, then the true goal of existence disappears. And I mean, that is one of the things that when we look at that chart all the time, that is your true goal, is evolving up that chart. And that's why when I say the points you need to hit, the key points up there is your timeline. It's not set to time. You just need to hit all the points. So that is your future. That is meant to be your future. But we lose focus of that for the most part because we have to hold on to the stuff. And we have to stay here with the stuff to hold on to it.
Right.
So, so a third condition of affairs grows out of the above two. A right apprehension of the future does not exist when the life of the spirit is negated, when the manifesting life concentrates itself on things concrete and apparent, then the true goal of existence disappears. The true incentive to right living is lost. And the sarcastic words of the initiate Paul, "Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die," characterize the attitude of the majority of men. Men deaden the inner voice that bears witness to the life hereafter, and they drown the words that echo in the silence by the noise and the whirl of business, pleasure, and excitement. The whole secret of success in treading the occult path depends upon an attitude of mind. When the attitude is one of concrete materialism, of concentration upon form, and a desire for the things of the present moment, little progress can be made in apprehending the higher esoteric truths. A fourth hindrance is found in the physical body, which has been built up by the aid of meat and fermented foods and drinks, and nurtured in an environment in which fresh air and sunlight are not paramount factors. I'm here generalizing and speaking for the masses of men and not for the would-be earnest occult student. For long centuries, food that has been decomposing and hence in a condition of fermentation has been the basic food of the Occidental races. And the result can be seen in the bodies unfitted for any strain, such as occultism imposes, and which form a barrier to the clear shining forth of the life within. When fresh fruits and vegetables, clear water, nuts and grains, cooked and uncooked, form the sole diet of the evolving sons of men, then will be built bodies fitted to be the vehicles for highly evolved egos. They patiently await the turning of the wheel and the coming in of a cycle which will permit of their fulfilling their destiny. The time is not yet, and the work of elimination and adjustment must be slow and tedious. And it's very interesting because if you are going to be doing, actually, if you get a Pluto transit, for example, if there's going to be the potential transformation or a moving up in some manner, if you're watching people carefully, they will generally go through a cleansing diet. They will change their diet in advance of it, not thinking it out, just, oh, they feel they need to do that. And after a while, you can see and recognize the cycle when you know what it is, and you'll watch people, and and of course, as an astrologer, I know when some of those cycles are coming for them, and then I just watch what's going on, and I'll say, oh, what prompted you to want to do this or that? Oh, I don't know. It just felt like I should be doing that kind of thing. So, but that normally shows up even when there's you're getting ready for a little bump up, within yourself. The body has an awareness back there. It's not keyed to time the same way that we are, but it knows something's coming. So it gives the impetus to want to change. Now the overcoming of hindrances. Can you hear any of that background? Or is that all?
Yeah, we heard that one.
That's wind. We've been having this for, well, not 24 hours yet, but this is a bigger one. Last night was bigger than the daytime was earlier in the day, but we get them about this time of the year. coming into the beginning of June. So the overcoming of hindrances, certain paramount realizations must precede this work of removing hindrances, and they might be enumerated as follow. A realization that in obedience to the next duty and adherence to the highest known form of truth lies the path of further revelation. B, a realization that dispassion is the great thing to cultivate, and that a willingness to undergo joyously any amount of temporary inconvenience, pain, or agony must be developed, having in view the future glory which will blot out the clouds of the passing hour. C, a realization that synthesis is the method whereby comprehension is attained, and that by blending the pairs of opposites, the middle path is gained that leads straight to the heart of the citadel. With these three things paramountly controlling his views on life, the student may hope by strenuous endeavor to overcome the four hindrances which we have touched upon. In taking up our consideration of the second rule, we will deal first with the relation of the soul to the personality, primarily from the standpoint of meditation. We are dealing therefore with the greater light, and will take up later the throwing upward of the lower light. This is in line also with the law of occult knowledge that one begins with universals. It should be borne in mind that these rules are only for those whose personality is coordinated and whose minds are gradually being brought under control. The man, therefore, is utilizing the lower mind, the reasoning mind, whilst the soul is utilizing the higher or the abstract mind. Both units are working with two aspects of the universal principle of mind. And in this ground, their relation becomes possible. The man's work with his mind is to render it negative and receptive to the soul, and this is his positive occupation. Note the use here of the word positive in an attempt to make the mind receptive, for herein lies the clue to right action. The soul's work in meditation is to make the point of that meditation so positive that the lower mind can be impressed, and so the lower man can be brought in line with the eternal plan. Thus again, we have a relation established between a positive and a negative vibration, and the study of these relations carries much information to the student and is part of the teaching given in preparation for the first initiation. A list of these related situations here might be given, showing them in their progressive relation on the path of evolution. The relation between male and female physical bodies, called by man the sex relation, and deemed of such paramount importance at this time. In the veil of illusion, the symbol often engrosses attention, and that which it represents is forgotten. In the solving of this relationship will come racial initiation, and it is with this that the race is now engrossed. Now, the relation between the astral body and the physical, which for the majority is the control by the positive astral nature of the negative automatic physical. The physical body, the instrument of desire, is swayed and controlled by desire, the desire for physical life, and the desire for the acquisition of the tangible. The relation between the mind and the brain, which constitutes the problem of the more advanced men and races, and of which the vast system of schools, colleges, and universities indicate the importance. Much progress in this relation has been made during the past 50 years, and the work of psychologists mark its highest point. When this is understood, the mind will be regarded as the positive factor, and the other two aspects of the form nature will respond receptively. They will be the automatons of the mind. The relation between the soul and the personality, which is the problem engrossing the attention of aspirants now, for they are the pioneers of the human family, the pathfinders into the world of the soul. With this relation, the mystics and the occultists concern themselves. The relation between the centers below the diaphragm and those above or between. The center at the base of the spine and the 1,000-petal lotus, the head center. In this, the 4 petals of the basic center become the many, or the quaternary is lost in the universal. The sacral center and the throat. In this, there comes a union between the 12 creative hierarchies and the quaternary, and the secret of the 16 petals of the throat lotus is seen. The solar plexus center and the heart, in which the 10 of the perfect man in this solar system is lost in the consummated 12. As the 12 creative hierarchies in their outer and creative aspect are contacted by the man who is the perfected quaternary from the standpoint of form, so in the relation between the solar plexus and the heart is the second aspect perfected. The love of the soul can express itself perfectly through the emotional nature. Now, the relation between the 2 head centers, or between the center between the eyebrows and the center above the head, this relation is set up and stabilized when the soul and the body are a functioning unit. The relation between the pineal gland and the pituitary body as a result of the above. The relation between the higher and the lower mind, involving steady and increasing soul contact. The meditative attitude of the soul is duplicated in the 3 bodies or by the spiritual man, and the steady meditation of the soul goes on also on its own plane. It is with this and with its effects that we are primarily concerned in this rule. A later relationship, which in no way concerns us, is set up after the 3rd initiation between the soul and the monad. And throughout the course of cosmic evolution, these relationships will emerge. The race as a whole is, however, only concerned with the setting up of a relation between the soul and the body. And beyond this, there is no need to go. As the man seeks to reach control of the mind, the soul in its turn becomes more actively aggressive. The work of the solar angel has hitherto been largely in its own world and concerned with its relation to spirit. And with this, the man working through his cycles on the physical plane has had no concern. The main expenditure of energy by the soul has been general and outward going, into the 5th kingdom. Now the solar angel approaches a time of crisis and of reorientation. In the early history of humanity, there was a great crisis of which we call individualism. At that time, the solar angels, in response to a demand or a pull from the race of animal men, as a whole, note that, sent a portion of their energy embodying the quality of mentalization to these animal men. They fecundated, if I might so express it, the brain. Thus was humanity brought into being. This germ, however, carried within it 2 other potentialities, that of spiritual love and spiritual life. These must in due time make their appearance. The flowering forth of the mind in men, which so distinguishes the present age, indicates to the solar angel a second crisis, of which the first was but the symbol. That for which the solar angel exists is making its presence felt within humanity, and another strong pull is beginning to exert upon the solar angel, which this time will produce a second fecundation. This will give to man those qualities which will enable him to transcend human limitations and become a part of the fifth or spiritual kingdom in nature. The first effort of the solar angel turned animal men into human beings. The second will turn human beings into spiritual entities, plus the gains of experience in the human family. For this, the solar angel, the soul, is organizing itself and reorienting itself so that its power can be redirected into the world of men. Contact must be made by the soul between the lower aspect of its triple nature and the aspect which has already found lodgment in the brain of man. Intelligent activity and love wisdom must be united, and the union must take place on the physical plane. In order to do this, the soul is entering into meditation deep in union with all other souls who may have brought their instrument into a responsive state. This is the basic group meditation, and when a man achieves what the Oriental books call samadhi, he has succeeded in participating as a soul in this group meditation and enters upon that cycle of service, which expresses itself through the planetary hierarchy. The rational mind and the abstract mind function as a unit, and the motivating principle is love. The soul, expressing love and abstract intelligence, is at one with its expression on the physical plane through the brain. And when this is the case, the lower man has synchronized his meditation with that of the soul. This is the objective of our work. Let this not be forgotten, and let every effort be made to bring the mind and the brain into such a functioning condition that a man can slip out of his own meditation and, losing sight of his own thoughts, become the soul, the thinker in the kingdom of the soul. It is perhaps a new thought to some that the soul is organizing itself for effort, reorienting its forces and preparing for a fresh and powerful impulse, but so it is. All forms of life under the force of evolution pass from initiation to initiation, and the soul is not exempt from the process. Just as the soul of animal man becomes united with another divine principle, so brought into being the fourth kingdom in nature. So the soul is humanity, is seeking contact with another divine aspect. When that contact is made, the kingdom of God will become on earth. The physical plane will thereby be transformed, and that peculiar period represented symbolically under the term millennium will come. The knowers of God in the era will preponderate over those who are simply aspiring to that knowledge, and their contact and the results of the force they transmit will be felt in all the kingdoms of nature. Dominion over all forms and the power to act as transmitters of that spiritual energy we call love is the promised reward of the triumphant solar angels and the prized goal of their meditation. The sons of God will triumph on earth in full incarnated expression and will bring light, therefore life, to all the manifested forms. This is the life more abundant to which Christ speaks, This is the achievement of true nirvani, who, living in unbroken meditation in the solar realm, spiritual realm, yet can work on earth. The work of initiation is to enable a man to live ever at the center, but act as a distributor of divine energy in any direction, and after the later initiations in all directions. We now, in our consideration of the next rule, take up the work of the lesser light of man on the physical plane. I, who have entered somewhat into an understanding of the life of the solar angel, seek to assure my fellow pilgrims that the passing things of the senses are but trivial and of no value compared to the rewards here and in this life to the man who seeks to merge his everyday consciousness with that of his soul. He enters them into the community of his souls and stands not alone. The only lonely periods are the result of wrong orientation and the holding on to that which hides the vision and fills the hands so full they cannot grasp what has been called the jewel in the lotus. Okay, we need to take a little break on that one, I think. So what did that say?
Just get your stuff together, man.
Yeah, I mean, when this was read to me, because we did the same thing, we had a group like this, I couldn't have told you from one sentence to the next what it meant. You know, I was listening, but it mentally, it made, at that point, it made no sense. But it does seep into your consciousness, and your consciousness is hungering for this. Your soul is saying, oh, finally, there's this game plan. Not that you can work deliberately, go in here and deliberately say, okay, I'm going to do all these points, and that way I'm going to make it happen. It's acquainting yourself with the material, but there is a balance of play, because you're still not going to interpret it right. If you had interpreted right in the first place, you wouldn't be needing to read this book. So the mind in itself has its own mindset. Your emotions on the astral plane have their own attitude about what's going on. So I think the exposure of this material allows it to seep in to the mind, and it can find the cracks and crevices that are open and available to start allowing this stuff to have an effect. So I could ask, okay, so what's your agenda for tomorrow, guys?
No,
Probably the best agenda would be to reread the chapter
right.
and get some more exposure.
Yeah, but we've got this momentum of our lives, or that inertia that keeps the patterns that need broken going, I guess, you know, or just they need to be
Dealt with every
shaken
day.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, priorities need to, if you were going to follow this path of priorities, you'd have to look at your priorities and maybe have to readjust them a little bit. But at the same point, you need to assume, you can't ignore the responsibilities you have either. You know, you may prioritize their value maybe a little, in terms of considering he's saying basically with your everyday life, this just either never made it here yet or got pushed to the side, because it's again the signal to noise ratio that when you get into like physical consciousness they talk about. I think he's got arbitrary numbers, but he's basically saying the signal might come down like at 1.4 or something. And the rest of the 100% is the noise that you're involved with all the time. You know, we're surrounded by the noise. We're surrounded by those bookcases back there that I see at your house, and the floor that you're actually walking on. In other words, all of that absorbs the majority of our time and space. And this is kind of out of sight, out of mind, especially with the generation that's now coming up, or my kids' generation, which would be one of the first ones that really didn't get having to go to church all the time, or Sunday school, or whatever, because that fell away with the 60s, frankly. All of that. So you don't even get learning the ABCs of occultism that we got, you know, some of the basic principles that got carried down for the last, what, 20 centuries or something.
I kind of see it like he's saying, accomplish, you know, all the things that need accomplished inside of an ashram or a monastery, but do that in your life, do that in the midst of your daily life.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy task. So it has to be active, I think, right?
Yeah.
There's active participation in it.
It does. Even the awareness of it, you know, would certainly initially have to be renewed every so often during the day, until you kind of get that little focus back there that's always there, built in. And I guess I'm pretty sure it was Paramahansa Yogananda, and like I said, out where I lived, his SRF is there, and it was very active in the 60s, and I just lived up the hill from it, so I mean I came down looking at it almost every day to travel elsewhere. And I think I think it was him, somebody had asked him, they found out that they were going to be passing on or something, and made the comment, well, you should start meditating. And the response was, my whole life has been a meditation. In other words, you know, you don't just add it on at the last minute, you just incorporate it into the awareness into your daily life. That's just the biggest first thing to do, without even trying to retrain your behavior patterns. Is you got to just get the idea, you know, get that thought form in there. It's like building in, it's like this material you are building into your consciousness. And I've listened to other people over time, and who've said, well, you know, I'm gradually getting it built in, and coming to be able to work with it or understand it better. But it is building it into the consciousness. And the thing about it is, you're building it in this lifetime, but that's the stuff you do not lose. That's the stuff you do take with you, is this awareness. So in other words, it's now part of the history of your soul. It is there. It is accessible to the soul in awareness. And if there's a reincarnation, then it's a lot easier for your reincarnated essence, whatever it is, or little entity, whoever you are, to get access and reacquainted with that, because it's there. It's now part of you, so that you can build on that lifetime after lifetime. And that's why he's saying at one point, he said, whichever issue it was. And I don't know how many lifetimes that would take, okay, to really get it in, but you got to get it there in the first place. Hey, Bo, are you there?
Yep.
Is that all I'm going to get out of you? Is a yep? What do you think?
I'm just listening, and I got my highlighter, and yep.
So which parts did you highlight?
Let's see.
We're waiting.
Well, I have a
Melinda's-
lot. I'm just trying to pick one that will kind of sum things up.
Melinda keeps looking up here, so she's waiting. So this is in one of your new books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting to use them.
Oh, okay. So we got the science has said there is no God and no spirit within man, and the religion has said there must be a God, but where may he be found? The masses say we desire not a God constructed by the brains of theologians. Therefore, the true inner comprehensions finds no room for expansion. So it's like just a bunch of, kind of roadblocks thrown up for everybody that they have to kind of wade through until they get kind of to what they're looking for, like what their path is, not dictated by anybody else or society or by, a certain way of, scientific thinking or whatever. It comes from within the individual. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that reminds me when you go to Europe and you're asking for direction because you don't know where you're going, but you're looking for something. Everybody will offer to help you, but the majority of the information is not accurate. They will tell you something, but it's just like that statement right there. Okay, go over there, and you do, and it ain't there, and then you ask again, and now it's somewhere way over there, and but they've all got an opinion of where it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you there.
And I think that really kind of shows everybody in the group that's in here, like we've all gone down multiple paths, all whatever. Now we're like, okay, well, like regardless of, like everybody's journey is different, but everybody has ended up here for some reason. So I don't think it's coincidental.
Yeah. Well, and DK will say you have to go within. In other words, that is where you're going to find it. When you turn inward and you start looking inward instead of out there. Because it is all there available for you. And like I said, you were born with all the equipment and you got the whole package. Each time you're born, you got the whole package to keep going to where your real destination is, which is moving up that chart. And you've got everything else. You've got it all. And that's why I'm kind of like saying you didn't need the car and you didn't need the this, that, and whatever else in terms of the stuff as a focus. Not that you aren't going through lifetime after lifetime to work your way to these way stations along the way and making your way, because you do, but the sooner you can understand it isn't the stuff, it's the principles that you are developing. And it is finding the truths and the signposts and the milestones that are part of us. Because we're really, I mean, this is science. This is what we're dealing with this time. We are learning now to be able to better appreciate the design of the system we're in and where we connect and coordinate with it. Okay. Because there's where we're going to find our truths, and we're going to find our ladder, if you will, and we're going to be able to move up, is when we get rid of all the other stuff that's obstructing the real structure. Because you're really looking for the points that are on that chart. You know, and you've got to get to go through that physical plane on this planet first, and all the levels of development there, from the single cell all the way up. You're going to then go through that astral plane, and actually humanity helped build it out, the consciousness in it. It's just that we got a lot of consciousness in there now that is a very wide array. Oh, something just went by. Hear that too?
Yeah, you're in the middle of something. We can definitely tell.
Yeah, it is, but it's just, that's life going by there. That's actually going out to sea. It's come off of the mountain, and it's going across the water now, because, and it's coming from the west and going east.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I mean, but the real, like I said, your real future is hitting those points. You've got to get through, hit those permanent atoms, move up to another plane, work with that, find out what's on that plane and the points you need to interact with to get the gate to go again. You know, you're working with light if you want. The lesser lights till you get to the greater light is another way of putting it, that's in here. And then it's how much do you need to, how much stuff do you need to do that? Do you think you need to get through this? And then how what is it? It's the Lilliput's. Who is the book? I never read it, but it was a classic, you know, where he gets tied down with all these little strings.
All over his travels.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another version of it, is you just, you get tied down. And then there's also, you know, the collective unconscious, and I am sure that we as humans leave a lot of residue. Not every life is fully completed and satisfied before they go back to their soul residence. So there's residue down there, and humanity is certainly not going to leave the garbage. So 9/10 of that is below the surface when we talk about that Plutonian energy, and that the basis of the myths that Campbell and those and Jung and stuff have talked about. So do you get stuck in that for a while, trying to pull some of that up? And in given lifetimes, yeah, some of those early first 3 years set patterns that you're going to have to extract yourself out of, because that's where you landed, but that's not your gig. But you've picked up the pattern, and and if it's not serving you well, then you have to become conscious of it so that it doesn't run you. You can move forward and move on. Otherwise, you're dragging stuff. In fact, one of the teachers I had for astrology, one of the questions was, why are most people who have Pluto in, I'm not sure he distinguished Scorpio. He may have Pluto and Scorpio in the 8th house. Why do they go to the majority of them have all gone to psychologists in their lifetime. You know, and the answer was because they want to know they're not crazy, because they're pulling up stuff that doesn't have anything to do with them in the life that they're seeing, that they're living around. But somehow they're attached to it, and when that information comes up through your mind, this is not tangible stuff now. This is thought patterns, or this is emotions or something like that. And they are real. They're real because you're experiencing them. And then you start to wonder, where did this come from? And sometimes people, it takes them over and they become extremely paranoid, or this or that. There's certain behavior patterns that come out. So, and I'm sure that we as a collective humanity are working off some of that also in our lifetime. And so there's a whole lot of stuff goes on. And we do need to, we do not go up into that mental plane and up to that soul, dragging a lot of baggage from the past. It's not interested in the baggage. And so by the time you would have completed the second initiation, which I think is pretty much, I think he's implied that's what this book is for, is you're not confronting that third initiation with any emotional attachments left unresolved. You've got to have dealt with them after the second, then you go on to the third. And this is now the mental plane, but you know, love of the soul, yes, that's there, but that is a mental love of the soul, because let's face it, the soul is not a tangible item for us either, that you can take out and look at it on the table and talk to it, you know. So it's a long journey, but we know what the journey is. You know, with this information, we become aware of the journey, and then you can make your choices about whether you are choosing. Like I said, I had a girlfriend that I knew that long time ago, when all these 60s come out, and she just says, hey, I know that's not my lifetime to do this. And I thought, oh, wow, how nice. You know, because she was not compelled. She was not driven. There wasn't that drawing her up that way. She was very happy making sandcastles, literally. And she was a great artist, so she did beautiful sandcastles. And she knew that. But for others, they're pulled because they've that connection within them either is just got ignited or it's reignited, because they're just going to pick up the threads that were started in an earlier lifetime, and now they're going to go forward. And so it's one of the two that you're doing in a process here, and the odds are you've already had a sense of and a connection with it, but now there's that inner part saying, okay, we need to hook up again here. I'm important that you look in my direction. And there's just that feeling, that beckoning. Generally, it starts out as desire. That's the application on the astral plane. That is the one for the positive one to draw you up, is you desire that, and you're going to go in that direction. and you just have to do the work. But what happens is, to do that work, you have to not be vulnerable to the electromagnetic field, for example, on the astral plane. I don't see it as being as much a problem on the physical plane, number 7, at this point in time, because most people are immersed in the emotional world now. I mean, their emotions are very active, they're fully developed. You would question that sometimes, but that they are. But the point is, they're fully engaged with the emotions and emotional responses. And that is the pattern where most people are. That's why he says early in this book, this is the second is the hardest, because most everybody is there. And there's no separations of all 7 sublevels in the astral plane. So it's one big sea of motion and emotion, all functioning on all 7 levels. So, I mean, they got your number no matter where you are here. On that one, you can't separate yourself off. When it comes to the mental plane, the bottom 4, you've got 4, 5, 6, and 7 are lower mental. That's where most of the mental stuff is occurring. Okay, because you hit level 3 and there's the soul. And there is, that bridge has not been gapped for everybody. It will have been gapped when you end up like with Bucke, with connective consciousness, cosmic consciousness. He's saying at some point, everybody will have that by the time they're 3. It'll just be part of you. And at that point, for the most part, you can figure that bridge gets gapped, and whatever developmental level between the birth and the age of 3 fills in, because it'll be part of the continuing development of mankind at that point in time. Because he's looking at it in the same way he's looking at sight. You know, somebody had it first. There always has to be the first one. Science will tell you that every time. That once it's happened to one unit of the human kingdom, then it will move through the whole of the human kingdom over time. So, and that's why I'm saying, so the physiological development of that will be such, Bucke is indicating, that over time, that will be at the age of 3, you will just have that level of awareness. Right now, that's not the case. So we are part of doing the work that ultimately will eventually lead to that being at the age of 3. And I don't think he's looking at any time soon. When you look at his chart, he talks about just seeing the colors and then the increase of it. It's eons of time, you know, that his chart deals with how long the rate, you know, humanity has had something, and the longer it's had it, the less you're likely to have been born without it. So it's like color blindness. He sees that those are still 2 colors. What is it? It's red and green, I think. Get mixed up sometimes for some people. It hasn't fully straightened out yet or something, but it will eventually. And now it appears that we have a group of people certainly coming in who can see auras and see the different colors. So their eye is the ones who are doing the front work, if you will, of helping develop that in the physical. And they're the forerunners, where most people don't see that yet, but it is progressively coming in. And so they may see the 7 colors. In fact, and those colors it's said to be are much more vibrant and, which they would be there. They don't have to embrace some physical medium to get the color like we do here. I mean, you're going to dye this or that. You have the natural color of the wood of a tree or something like that, but it has to have a medium for that color to come in. In the etheric, they're seeing etheric vision. And so the colors and their capacity to see that, has a certain degree of vibrancy and color is really what I've heard people say who have that capacity. So there's always some forerunners, and then there's the middle group, which is the largest one, and then you'll have people coming from behind, and you need that bell-shaped curve for stability, because the forerunners can they can end up out there, so to speak. They can end up, they get their development goes to a certain point at whatever life or process. And there's probably some bumps along the road. You don't want the whole of society taking the bumps all at the same time. So it's just generally the way it goes. You can't. So you have the extremes on both ends, beginning and the outer edges, but the mass keeps it steady, and it keeps that growth and continuum stable. So, and then, if you got to a point of accomplishing the the connection with the soul, the consciousness with the soul, and you've basically done everything you can do down on the bottom 3. The bottom 3 levels, you've accomplished those, then you're moving up into consciousness, but you no longer have a body. You're not using the substances of the lower 3 kingdoms unless you come back for some purpose. Otherwise, you're off with functioning in a total different, you've got another 3 levels. The spiritual triad is, and then 1 level above that, and then maybe the top level. Although I think that's extremely rare or doesn't join in. Anyway, you got 7 initiations and 2 to plan your getaway out of here. So, it's an interesting life in the end, because you've gone through all these different stages. And I've always felt it was interesting to be able to be on this planet, because you do have the ability to function on all these different levels at the same time, and the capacity to function. I don't think you get, certainly the lower 3 would not be the same on Venus as here. This might be a holiday planet in a sense. It is beautiful. And that's from our perspective of being down here. And that's my perspective of, living where you've got a physical, you've got water, you have air, and you've got a unit that's been created who can function in it. If you take this unit, they're already figuring that out. You take this unit off this planet, and it doesn't have to go far off this planet, and it doesn't hold its shape and its function the same way. I think you had an astronaut that had a twin down here, and the one who was up there's DNA changed shape. The DNA changed, the eyeballs changed shape. The DNA changed. And the reason they could compare it is because they were twins. It went back to the right shape when it's back on the planet. So, I mean, you should never figure that if they go to Mars, you're going to go visit your cousins and they're going to be the same, look the same and function the same way as the last time you saw them or your expectation, because it's not going to be there. It's a different planet. It's different gravity. It's got a whole different quality about it. And very soon those life forms, if they can sustain life there, will start to change. Yeah, they'll be distant cousins. As we usually put it, you know, we're distant cousins. We don't see them too often. They may not be quite like us anymore. Like the cousins you have if you grow up in a small town and they live next door to you. You're not changing too much at that point. But I don't know how, I'm sure they've thought of those things, but they're not in the general public thinking. You know, they just saw the short little movie with Matt Damon, and he wasn't on Mars that long and he could still grow potatoes over there. So aside from his atmosphere, it probably wasn't all that much different, but it would be different. And, so what are you thinking, Donnie? I see you looking out there.
I was just thinking about how that, you know, the quantum relates, I guess, between here and there, and you know, I guess the physics, the quantum physics behind it. I don't know anything. That's just what I was thinking about. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, each of the planets has a different predominant ray. There's 7 rays. We got 7 planets, and this solar system is its own entity, just a lot bigger than we are. We are our own entity too. We have our 7 chakras, and we happen to be on this planet, and our design is designed for this one in terms of all of the scaling and everything else that's there. So you have a predominant ray, and its qualities that is for each planet is different also, by the way. When you're talking about thinking about the quantum, Annie Besant has a really good description of the very beginning and how everything is in a very tight structure, the 3 parts, you know, the Trinity. And then at some point, it's like you would take a pool cue and you hit the, you know, as you set them up and they go all over the place. The same thing happened, which put everything in motion here, there, and elsewhere, you know, which is the atomic structure we're talking about. They describe that to you. Even in my day, they knew that all that stuff was just bouncing around out there. And, you know, and it's the building blocks in many respects. I mean, that's what we use to create things with.
Well, she did the consciousness of the atom, right? She wrote that book as well. Yeah.
Yeah. A study in consciousness. She probably did the other one too, but the study of consciousness was the one I was thinking. But I mean, so there's your quantum out there just dinging around, all that activity, all of that stuff. But the quantum probably wouldn't function the same way on Mars. It would
Yeah.
have some, if I say restrictions, I don't mean that we don't have restrictions, but whatever the parameters are for that planet and its total relationship to the 7, to the ray structure. I mean, there's so many things to be factored in there. That our quantum, so to speak, works fine for us, our way. And obviously she was talking about the cosmos. The billiard ball will get hit, so to speak, and set everything in motion for the entire system. But then we also have our limiting factors, if you will, that confine us to certain behavior patterns. So that's the one we are trying to figure out how to get through and maneuver is,
Right.
you know, working our way through this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you start with a group and you end up with an individual. That's the first 3. Then you start with a group again, meaning the hierarchy, and you end up as an individual. By the time you've gotten, I believe that would be the 6th, would be the second, because the second set of 3 ends up with the 6th. The first one ended up with the 3rd. That one would be the 6th, and you're back to an individual again because you've been trained group-wise in hierarchy, if you will, through getting through those 3 points, to which now you're back to being able to operate. It's a graduation from school again and again in that regard. Bull.
Yes.
Yeah. So what else? You got to be thinking.
Oh my God.
No, you're not just a yellow marker.
Yeah, for sure.
We're probably looking for what caused you to make those yellow marks in certain places.
I don't know. I haven't processed it yet. It just stuck out as something that I needed to highlight.
Okay. You're good at evasion too, aren't you?
Not really.
Okay.
It's
So we
like
gotta-
we're going to bring the subjective work into the objective. Or does that sound? Bring our subjective work into our daily lives and integrate that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing it together and making it one, so that it basically is.
And then there's that union. And then there is, even with this material, I see what you meant by that. It becomes a part of us. There is a union all taking place all the time with this, because old things are getting left behind and new things are becoming the reality, where we can drop off some of our old thoughts or beliefs or whatever you want to call that, patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, and remember, creating consciousness is the union of spirit and matter. That is a constant union. And that's why when it talks about the openness of the love, this whole system is about love. This whole system is about creating consciousness. They are basically one and the same. They are the union of spirit and matter. It is that simple in its fundamentals.
So let me ask you something. Would it be more difficult to bring the subjective in when you have a thicker skin like an animal, this thicker skin of an animal, or the skin of a gray, like a shell. Do those things, because the human skin is very soft and kind of thin, but as you go, you look at the
Remember, this is
animals.
mental work.
What's that?
Remember, we're talking about mental work.
Okay. Would that make it more difficult or almost impossible? You need to be a human being, is what I'm saying. We need to have this vehicle.
Right. But what I'm also saying is it isn't a matter of can it get through a thicker skin.
Okay.
Thicker skin would be just a resistance to anything coming in from the outside. That may be a piercing comment or something. In other words, I would think that would be more of what that represents. In other words, you got a thick skin or you got a thin skin. So somebody generally, I think it's used when somebody makes a comment, and the thin-skinned one is going to take an emotional, it is going to have some emotional response to that, which isn't probably going to be pleasant.
Yeah.
Somebody who's thick skin they're just not, it's descriptive of something else. We know it's not really the skin.
Right. I'm saying,
Okay.
but it would keeping it in too. And it would be holding whatever's in and keeping whatever's out. That I'm just looking at it in a weird way right now. But
yeah, okay. But basically your movement here that this book is going to talk about is moving up into that mental realm. It is separating away from, well, you've completed the astral plane if you're going to move up. if you're going to go through the actual initiation he's talking about, which means then that you have, if you go back to Annie Besant, all of the vibrations that can be placed on that full plane, all 7 levels of it, you have the corresponding match. So you have the consciousness, you have the awareness that relates to it. So if a piece of information, a piece of data, or whatever comes along, you already understand it, so you don't have to go back there. If you don't have it, then you're going to go back to review it in some way. Okay, so now, and the soul is really not interested in what would be the 3rd initiation. It's not interested in direct, fully conscious contact with you, or to help you grow too much if you haven't taken care of your business on the astral plane first and the 2nd initiation, because then you're going to get more energy and start developing here, and you're going to get pulled back there. And you're going to have to go back to revisit something because it wasn't dealt with. So that's the difference between functioning on one plane and yeah, you're working on the other stuff and you're interested and you're kind of going up that way. But if you still have stuff pulling you back, then you don't make it past those initiatory levels until it's all resolved. And it goes right back to vibrations. It's so that nothing pulls you back down. That is the goal of the significance of each of those initiatory points is, all right, so you've dealt with everything that could happen on the 7th plane. I'm pretty sure it's DK that makes reference to that, so that you have all of those, and then you have a second initiation when you have accomplished that on all 7 levels of the astral plane. Prior to that, if there's any emotional connection anywhere, and that's, you're not going up to that 3rd. Because you're getting ready to say, I'm ready to die. That's what you're preparing for. I'm ready to take on the load of the full consciousness of the soul. And I'm now going to be one unit. And in that process, you make a connection with each point in the spiritual triad, because I am moving up. I am leaving here. Okay. And which means there can be no connections that are going to hold you back, period. So when you want to know why it's so hard, and people see it so hard, that's why. Because no connections mean no connections. That means family, children, any responsibilities you have to anything in the world. You basically have to be ready to say the world can do just fine without me. You know, if you're married, you have promised your body to your partner. That's part of the marriage vows. You know, you have made commitments. So, you know, I mean, there's lots of things that people don't realize, but I mean, that's really what, because you will be capable then of going and living in the realms of that spiritual triad, which are all formless. So that's a major transition, and they make it a major one when he talks about it, you know, the difference of the different levels. It's the 1, 2, 3, and which we just said was the physical, the emotional, and the mental. And you started as a group and you become an individual. Then you're starting all over again, except it's 4, 5, 6, and you're in a group. But now your group is in that hierarchy, and that spiritual triad doesn't necessarily have any interest in anything that goes on levels 7, 6, and 5. You may never have any reason to ever come back. I think the biggest reason is they launch a campaign every once in a while on something that's going on here, and they need a little extra pull, a little extra light, and they may choose some of them to reincarnate, but it's you know, it's an arduous journey because we love our stuff. We love our emotions. Somehow, I suppose, and there's, for some people, I think it's implied here, they get really hung up on their mental apparatus, you know, and they are impressed with their brain. And they want to leave it to posterity by having a bunch of children or something. In other words, or they're going to create some idea, or, you know, that is going to be wonderful for humanity. And that's what they value. Although he does say they can be the brightest scientists and stuff there is and have no idea the soul ever exists, because they're not connected in that route. No matter what, they're on the mental plane, but they're not, they don't even know that journey's there. So. And I believe you see, when we talk about the light, it starts out with the stronger light and the lesser light. I believe you see at the end of the third initiation, you see the light, or might be defined as a star sometimes too, I'm not sure. And I'm sure that that is the one that is now revealed, which would be the lower light. And then probably, I have no idea for sure because he can't delineate what happens at the sixth. He just says it's some event of, I can't even remember exactly how he describes it. Probably kind of implied that, you know, it knocked your socks off or something kind of thing. You know, so it'll be an upper version of whatever happens at the third. You'd probably get another expanded version. But principally the same, because he said the third ray functions, is the predominant ruler on the third and the sixth. So it's got something to do with substance, and probably that light in terms of its integrated intelligence. So, all right, well, we have some more time, but I'm going to ask you whether we go to rule 3. Well, it's long, we'll never get through it, but that isn't the point. Or where do you want to go at this point with this stuff for the remainder of time today?
Oh, Melinda,
Well, I thought of a question, like, as far as the, you know, time of the journey, everything else like that, how we're picking up all the Earth's karmas with our karmas. I don't know, that kind of like deflated me. I'm like, come on, man, I got my karmas, now I got Earth's karmas too. This is going to be, you know, like how many times I got to come back to pay the piper for everything, you know?
There's 4 levels, by the way. That's why there's 4 lords of karma. So we got bigger cosmic karma out there too, that ain't just the Earth's. Okay. But there's 4 levels of it. I don't know if I can find it real quick. It's an esoteric healing, I think. Yeah, I mean, we get so into, with the word karma, we get so into it, just, you know, like I said, people bantying around the fact that other people have karma. They never think they have any themselves. It's always that somebody else is got bad karma or creating bad karma for themselves, or is paying them back for karma that somebody did to them. But I never see people who really say that, okay, well, you know, that happened, other than my sister actually, but that happened to me because I did such and such back here, there, you know. So anyway,
well, it's crazy because it's like we have our karmas that we're, you know, creating, you know, like during this incarnation or whatever, but then we're paying for the ones that we made. So it's like a perpetual, never-ending game of karma.
Yeah, except that he indicates, and this will be nice, and that one I'm sure is in esoteric healing, but I'm not sure I can find the page right away, that there's a lot more good karma waiting for us than there is any bad karma, by the way. So, I mean, we haven't even thought about that yet. You know, and the bottom line is, the easy way to recognize that is, look at that chart. It has 7 levels, right? And where's the majority of man? He's down in number 2. Anything above him is better stuff going for it than wherever he is, whatever's behind him. So all of that is relatively good karma. So I don't, let's see if I can find the law. But yeah, no, we have 4 different levels of karma that we share with. And like I said, the other thing is people just are so happy to banty around karma, thinking it all is bad. So, you know, and a lot of it's probably not that bad for starters. It's just that people like to make sure they got something to knock you over the head with. Okay. I'm trying to. There's different, yeah, there's, oh, karmic liabilities of the individual. So this is, I'm in esoteric healing here. Says we already studied, this may or may not relate to what you're, because you're thinking probably of personal karma. Things you definitely did, you're going to pay for, right? And so this
Yeah.
may not apply. Okay, but it is karmic liabilities of the individual. We have already studied our first point under this heading. This concerns the karmic liabilities of the individual emerging from the subjective vehicles and from the personality as a whole. As we've discussed, the psychological causes of disease as they arise in the subtle vehicles in the 3 worlds or from the disciple's tension as he endeavors to tread the path, we were in reality concerned entirely with karma or with the effect of the inner causes of events, equipment, and circumstances on the physical plane. So this was probably throwing it into the physical, but anyway, we saw how the inner bodies by way of the etheric body conditioned the man's outer manifestation, and that disease or health is largely dependent upon them, meaning the etheric vehicles. They are the immediate karmic cause of physical plane existence. If the idea is then extended to include previous incarnations, as must inevitably be the case, then we arrive at the conclusion that the condition of these inner bodies, their limitations and their richness, their defects and their assets, their general psychic and psychological tendencies are inherited from previous lives and are therefore responsible for the present earthly situation. We have consequently simply pushed the causes of present day conditions still further back, and we could, if we so desired, enter a field of such intricacy and detail that nothing profitable would eventuate. The whole problem of the recovery of past incarnations is one of infinite possibility. And when I use the word infinite, I immediately put the whole subject out of the control of the finite mind. We are then dealing with something which is not possible to handle rationally. Karma was for infant humanity and for the undeveloped individual a group matter. The man was a member of a group, but without any thought as to the implications and the responsibilities entailed. Later, as the process of individualization became more effective in character and purpose and more pronounced in temperament, karma became also more personal and definite, and the man in a position to make or work off more causes and effects. The personality not being thoroughly unfolded and integrated, the man was still involved in group life, and the inner relations became more extensive. Later on, the personality became the conscious creator of its own causes and the conscious participator in the effects. Upon the path, the karma of the chosen group, of the individual, and of those with whom the man chooses association through unity of spiritual purpose involves him. And another factor is added to the previous categories of karmic responsibility. Later still, karma in the three worlds is met and overcome and negated. At the same time, karma connected with the initiating of causes through world service is added to that which the individual has already experienced, and he shares in the karmic responsibility of the hierarchy itself. All of these stages, elementary group karma of the primitive man, individual karma of the self-conscious developing man, karma related to the life of the disciple, and hierarchical karma must be added to the well-known karma of retribution, with which the disciples are already familiar. To it must also be added national and racial karma, plus the educational karma which all disciples bring about themselves when they are desirous of entering an ashram to prepare for initiation. There is also the karma of reward, in contradistinction to that of retribution. This is a type of karma oft forgotten, but one which will become better known in the coming world cycle. Humanity has worked off much evil karma, and the karma based on causes later to be initiated will not generate such dire effects as the past. Not all karma is bad, in spite of what man thinks. Much of it is necessarily punitive and distressing, owing to humanity's ignorance and low stage of development. When karmic retribution becomes acute and terrible, as it is in today's appalling world experience, and he would have written this during World War II, it indicates humanity has reached a point where consequences can be meted out on a large scale and with justice. Very little suffering is attached to karma where there is ignorance, leading to irresponsibility and complete lack of thought, and there is attached to affairs but little true sense of guilt. There may be unhappy conditions, distressing circumstances, but the ability to respond to such conditions with commensurate pain is lacking. There is little mental reaction to the processes of karmic retribution. This should be borne in mind. The Aryan race is now, however, so developmentally and on a large scale that karma is truly horrible and antagonizing and can express itself through world conditions. At the same time, the present widespread distress indicates the extent and success of human unfoldment and is a most hopeful and promising sign. In this idea, you have a clue as to why the good, the holy, and the saintly servers of the race carry in this world cycle such a heavy load of karmic ill. It is consequently quite impossible in the scope of this treatise to deal more fully with the subject of karma as it produces the many types of human ills, including disease, only one of its manifestations. The theme is too vast, too complicated, too widely diffusing in its effect. All that one can do is to posit the fact that past actions and reactions have established in previous lives such as a karmic rhythm, that today all the aspects of the lower nature are involved, and amongst the commonest and the most ordinary effects, and the one in which the great law of retribution takes effect, is that of disease. This is a point which healers and metaphysicians, so-called, should most carefully consider. And you've got to remember now, we are working on a mental level. We do have better physical bodies than we had. You get to somebody like the biology of belief guy, and he will tell you that every cellular membrane, there is a receiver and a transmitter. So, and I tacked that on with some of the lower part. The last part here is because we can now get a lot of that instantly in terms of whatever you put in your system, whatever you put in your mouth, it has a response. It has a reaction, and it's pretty quick. So, you drink Hilux bleach, you got a problem. Okay, and your karma is going to come pretty quick. For example, if you do something that takes you off track of where your soul says you should be going, evidently at this point in time, our equipment is good enough that it can bring on an irritating health issue to try to get you off track right away, rather than having to undo something with a fast set of, a long set of incarnations, because your life pattern moved slower way back when. So, and we will, of course, as we get farther out, we will start to take more responsibility as individuals with our cosmic relations, and the karma there, because that will be embodied in that spiritual triad. Because he does indicate that those etheric realms are somewhere along the line, at least the way I saw it, was they are bottom aspects of the greater levels of cosmos we're plugged into, in terms of there's the cosmic physical plane, there's the cosmic astral plane, there's the cosmic mental, and the cosmic Buddhic. And each of those choices of where you go, of which there were 7 paths, I think they've expanded it a little bit now, took you either to the cosmic astral plane, it took you to the cosmic mental plane, or it took you to the cosmic Buddhic plane. So we are plugged in on those upper levels. And so you're just going to start embodying that karma, and it doesn't necessarily have to be yours personally. Does that make you happy?
A little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. And it's a beautiful lawn. I don't know if I can remember the page. I mean, I thought it was 411, but let's see. It's law number 2. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Let me see if I can find, because that's the beautiful one, because it transfers over from the law of ancient sharing of evil to the law of ancient good. And, that is the nice one. And we just have to work farther up on the scale to get plugged into that one, and not that much farther up. Let's see. Yeah, and like I said, I don't, more than anything else, I think karma has been overrated. Because I truly mean that. They like hitting people over the head with it. It's always something that you can throw at somebody else, and make a good accusation. Oh, here it is. This was law number 2. It's like 543 page. Disease is the product of and subject to 3 influences. First, a man's past, wherein he pays the price of ancient error. Second, his inheritance, wherein he shares with all of mankind those tainted streams of energy which are of group origin. Third, he shares with all natural forms that which the Lord of life imposes on his body. And so, you've got probably a potluck there. These influences are called the ancient law of evil sharing. This must give place someday to the new law of ancient dominating good, which lies behind all that God has made. This law must be brought into activity by the spiritual will of man. So I've always loved that since the first time I read that. And by the way, that's on page 543, and I know you have the books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one you should be thinking about. And basically, the farther up mankind moves on that chart, then he's going to get into that dominating good. Because, you know, everything moving up towards God is got the tag of good on it, on that chart, everything above you. And let me see which, I think it's at the third or fourth, and they're not that far apart, is when your karma gets wiped. When you've gotten that far. I'm pretty sure that's the one. I don't think it's the sixth. I think it's the fourth, or because you realize there's nothing else for you here for you at the fourth, because you've done everything there is you can do. And when you get ready then for the destruction of the causal body, because it's not needed anymore, I think the karma gets wiped. Any karma you might have had left, it's gone. I don't think you have to wait until you're up another set of 3. I think it's at the third. So, and there's a fair amount about karma in this esoteric healing, because they're talking about probably one of the results of trying to resolve it is health issues and stuff. So. Anybody else?
Well, if you eat a bunch of candy, you're gonna have to go to the dentist.
Yeah, I know. More than once
Mm-hmm.
for the same teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a walking example of that.
I am as well.
Yeah, no, I loved candy. I ate a lot of candy when I was young, and I got the teeth to show for it.
What are you shaking your head at?
Huh?
Melinda?
Oh,
I have awesome teeth.
good.
I love going to the dentist. Every time I go to the dentist, they're like, dude, your teeth are amazing. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
Great example of how different our lives can be here.
well, honestly, like, I'm surprised that they're so good, but I think I get it from my mom because of some of the stuff that I've done in my life. I shouldn't have good teeth.
Yeah,
No.
and there are strains, human strains of I don't know what to call it, but where they've got really good teeth.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
yeah.
my husband and my son,
No.
I'm fighting tooth and nail to keep my son's teeth. And I mean, he brushes and flosses every day. He just doesn't have the I brush and even when I was doing all that stupid stuff, I still had like really good dental hygiene. Like it was just like it's a weird thing that I have. But yeah, like my husband's whole family, like, ew.
I'm one of those that and of course I heard a lot of the fallout from World War II in my early years. It's still around. So I have a set of teeth you don't want to smile during a war. There's a lot of gold in there.
They're just taking it out.
Well, that's what they did.
Oh
In
man.
Japan. Yeah, they went through all those corpses and took all the gold out.
I've seen that happen firsthand, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
And
I
you know-
guess, yeah, they just like if you're dead, they're like, oh, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they take it.
Irony is there's not that much gold on them, at least not now.
Oh,
I mean,
like
the
little
base, yeah, it's really thin. but it looks good and it lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Probably before they probably had more gold in a filling because they didn't have the precision equipment that we can now and the ability to layer that and make it stay to the base that they got inside of there. So
I'm trying to think. I think I have like 2 fillings, but I think one of them's like, it's not even metal. They don't even use metal.
porcelain. Do you have more
Yeah,
porcelain?
might be that. I don't know what she put in there, but I don't even think it was metal.
Yeah. Anyway, it's yeah, we live and learn.
Yeah. I'm a strong advocate of healthy teeth, healthy body.
Well, I
say
have
it
a
all-
daughter. I have a daughter whose teeth are that way, but her grandma, she follows her grandma. Her grandma could never sleep without going. She could
Yeah.
never go to sleep if she didn't brush her teeth.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. And
And-
flossing, like flossing is like even if you don't brush, floss.
Yeah.
Just get some floss in there. Just
Yeah,
get
that's
in
where your pockets are going to show up. I'm trying to find I'm trying to find some more about karma in here that
Remember a long time ago, I read a story about karma. So I've never been one to think that you can only have bad karma or only other people have bad or good karma. Like I've always really just focused on my own karma, but knowing that it's not just, you're not just accumulating bad karma. Like it's not just bad karma, it's both. You can accumulate both and they
Yeah.
kind of, you can cancel out. And it's not just like things that you do. It's like things that you say, your intention, things that you do. Like it's not just
Things you don't do.
intention, right? Like, so, but yeah, I remember reading a
but
story along.
yeah, and
A
I
long
run
time ago.
around with people
Sorry, go ahead.
studies for for many decades. So, a lot of them are into that's part of the buzzwords of being in this study is, of course, you can dole out karma to people, or you see something that they do that you don't like, or it's not nice. Oh, he's incurring karma with that.
Or I hear people, I go, oh, that's some good karma, or they're gonna get theirs, or that must be their karma. I'm like, that's not even how it works. Like it just doesn't work like that. It's not even like, it's not how it
But
works. Like
That's really good astral plane buzzwords. They use it all the time.
yeah, I get really annoyed, especially people that have never even really looked into it or like tried to understand it at all. I'm like, dude, you stop. No, that's not how it works. I wish I could remember that story though. I just remember like because I always laugh when my son, like one time my son was like, I wish my parents were more like snowflake parents. And I was like, well, you picked us. So I don't know. Like, yeah, you could have picked different parents. I don't know what to tell you. But like I was reading all about karma and stuff and how you collect these like pebbles, like black and white pebbles. And then as you're going through the, that next stage or whatever, and then you figure out, the pebbles help you to kind of figure out where you're going next. Like how, like almost like the scales, right? And then, but the part that really freaked me out was when the person got to choose their parents and they were watching couples having sex. And then they were like, okay, then they would pick their parents. And I'm like, that's messed up, man. Like you watched us having sex and then decided who your parents are going to be. So I always laugh when William's less than impressed with Jimmy and I, and I'm like, oh really? Because you chose us, dude. You chose this life, bro.
I also
Think about that with Dylan.
so I found the level at which your karma goes away. this is in the raise and initiations, and I'm just going to read the back part. It starts out, you will see therefore that in the earlier initiatory process, the factor of time is noted by the initiate, because we're dealing with the fourth one now, fourth initiation. The factor of time is noted by the initiate and is also by the presenting masters. An instant of a slow permeation of information from the plane of initiation to the physical brain can be seen in the fact that very few aspirants and disciples register the fact they've already taken the first initiation, the birth of Christ in the cave of the heart. That they have taken it is evidenced by their deliberate treading of the way, by their love of Christ, no matter what name they call him, and by their effort to serve and help their fellow man. They are still, however, surprised when told the first initiation lies behind them. This is due entirely to the factor of time, leading to their inability to bring through past events with accuracy, or by a false humility as well, inculcated by the Christian church, as it attempts to keep people subjugated by the sin idea, and by intensely forward-looking anticipatory consciousness of the average aspirant. When a true perspective and balanced point of view is attained, and some awareness of the eternal now is beginning to penetrate into their understanding, then the past, the present, and the future will be lost to sight in the consciousness of the inclusiveness of the moment that is. Then the limitations of time will be ending and the law of karma will be negated. It is as present so closely related to the past and the future. The dual life of the disciple will then be ended, giving place to the cosmic dualism of the master. The master is free from the limitations of time, though not of space, because space is an eternal entity. As you will therefore see the great necessity for a constant emphasis at this stage in the training of the average aspirant, in the need for alignment or the creation of a channel of direct relation from the brain to the desired point of contact. To train this alignment must eventually be added the building of the anakarana and its subsequent use in a growing system of alignments. The antakarana must be completed and direct contact must be established with the spiritual triad by the time the third initiation has been taken. Then follows the fourth initiation with its destruction of the egoic, causal, or soul body, owing to the complete fusion of soul and personality, and the dual life of the disciple ends. So I wouldn't worry too much about your karma. Just climb up that ladder there and it'll just go away. Leave its residue around for somebody else to take on down here.
You're like crop dusting karma on everybody.
Yeah, you can just say, here, shoulder this.
That's bull.
So you see, you got a way of getting out from underneath it, Bull.
Good. I don't want all that
You
stuff
don't want-
on me.
You're right. So you
just
gotta
gotta shake it
rise.
off, bro. Shake it off.
You just gotta rise above it. And there's a point there on the chart that'll tell you exactly where you need to go to make that happen. So anyway. So it's not so dire. And besides, oh, this is so casual, I probably shouldn't say it. Nowadays, you have flushing toilets. You don't have to worry about too much of anything. It's not like earlier in humanity where you still had all that stuff hanging around. You can get rid of stuff now. Life is better. You know, when I've been in Europe and I've seen some of these, I won't say the castles, but they're like in Austria, stuff like that. The houses the tract houses we have now are much better than those houses that were their, you know, their royalties houses. So everybody's got that standard these days. So you can move faster, you can eliminate your karma. And that's how you do it. Then you just go take on cosmic karma.
Get rid of one for the other. Oh man, sounds crazy.
It's just the world you live in. I mean, or the universe you live in. You're all carrying the load for everybody because it is all one. Truly.
I'm used to it. That's what moms do.
Hmm?
I'm always carrying extra loads anyway.
Yeah.
What's one more bag?
Yep.
Pack mules of karma.
Right. It's like when you go to the grocery store, you're like, I'm making one trip, bro. I don't care if it's 500 pounds of groceries. I'm making one trip.
Yep. Yeah.
Load it all on. Let's go.
Is that Atlas? Is an Atlas still with the world on his back or something?
Yep. He's all like,
Yeah. And Sisyphus has to keep pushing it up the hill and rolls down every day. And who gets their liver plucked out every day?
Prometheus, isn't it?
Prometheus.
Yeah.
Prometheus.
I mean, hey, let's face it, your karma can't be that bad. I mean, we all know about Prometheus, and he was a long time ago, and it's still happening for him.
Yep.
So we probably, yeah, he might be taking on a load for a lot of us. Mm-hmm.
Didn't he get rescued by his brother later?
I don't know. I
Still
don't know
there.
history.
He's still there. Still getting plucked. Still getting plucked.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope somebody would come and help him.
I thought it was his brother came and undid the thing.
I think he ended up back over there, though. I think he went back. Like he chose to go back. I don't remember why, but he did.
He sure didn't value his liver.
Right. Well, he might have had the misconception he was already a god. And he could go through anything. Who knows? So we got through the rule number 2. We should have some good substance now, I think, on this book. I haven't looked, I mean, it's been a long time since I've gone through this whole book. Yeah, we got rules. They're all rules. 15 of them. We're at number 2.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, some of them are stout. There's some serious business in there.
Yes, there is. And then as I recall, there are some that really appear to be boring. We'll have to deal with those. too. I mean, you know, they get serious. They aren't fun and games. So,
Well, that's no fun.
yeah, it's more fun when it's fun, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
So do you want me to edit this video and kind of end it closer to where we finished reading for today?
It's up to you guys. Maybe they'll be interested in some of this other stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I can cut out the dead space, the dead air.
Well,
You know what I mean?
should they be pondering on this during the dead space?
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
I don't know. You
Whatever
guys,
makes you happy makes me happy, Donnie.
Well, very easy. I don't have to do anything. You just put it on, just the way it is.
I
So
mean,
that,
I'm good either way. Whatever you want.
no, we can leave it.
yeah, those might have been pregnant pauses.
Yeah.
It's the real and the true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there were that many dead spaces, were they? And they weren't for that long. Or did it seem like they were?
But I don't know. I'm not a good judge of that. What I see is the volume. I'll see the audio, and then I'll see the space in between them, and some of them will be, pretty long in comparison, probably to what the other videos were. That's all the reason I say that.
All right. Well, time-wise, it won't be bad because it's going to be 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, sounds like this wind is just going to keep blowing for a while.
I'm glad that's not here.
I think you already had it.
I had enough of that for a minute.
I guess so.
I need a break, actually, from the wind for a little bit.
Yeah. Or at least your roofs do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had to clean. I was cleaning gutters yesterday, and I'm not done. I've got 40 bales of pine straw outside to go re-edge the landscape from that getting trashed pretty much.
Well, is that going to stay in place if another big wind comes? Or do you leave it veiled?
It should last for a while. It'll help me out. It'll help for a little while. Yeah, I'm really just using it for etching, for landscape, making it look nice.
Yeah, no, I got that, but I'm just saying, if a big wind comes along and a big storm, is it going to take the pine straw with it?
No, the pine straw is usually good because it's interwoven really nicely, like the universe. But the pine cones are it's everything that's not interwoven that's really a pain, honestly.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we're probably done, huh?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
You want to cut the
Yep. We'll say goodbye for today with this.